Hey, this is Justin Brook with happily.unemployed.com, and I've got a buddy on here. Unfortunately, we couldn't do this one live because the time zones are crazy. He's out in Australia. I'm here in Tennessee, but I wanted to get this knowledge over to you. This is the man who needs no introduction. It's James Schramko from jamesschramko.com. He's been around forever. He's got the silver circle. He's got all kinds of amazing products out there. You probably already know him, but here's James Schramko. Schramko, go ahead and say hi real quick.
Hey, look, it's great to be here. And I'm sorry I wasn't live, but I'm probably floating around the Indian Ocean right now on a boat somewhere in the Maldives.
Beautiful. Love it. Okay, so I know you've got some stuff prepared, but I wanted to kind of get a little bit of the story for like that one person that's watching who hasn't heard of you yet. Tell us a little bit about when did you start, and then some of your accolades.
The online
Brag a little
stuff.
bit.
Yeah, winding back a bit. Look, I was running a Mercedes-Benz dealership as a general manager in my early 30s. It's kind of reached the pinnacle of career. I was the man. I had a couple of Mercedes-Benz in the driveway. I had a good income and a team of 70 people across 3 facilities. It was like a baller job, except I could see that it was a bit perilous because I've got one income. So I really wanted to figure out this online stuff. The internet was starting to become a thing, and I could sense that it was going to be big. And I felt like I really needed to learn how to build a website. And of course, it was really hard. It was so hard. This is about 2005, 2006. I registered my first domain, which was actually jamesschramko.com,
Hmm.
because one of my nemesis at the time had registered her domain name. And I figured, well, I could register my name. And then I think, what would I put on this website? And it took me ages to figure this out. But eventually, after sucking a few lemons, I found a way that I could build a website. And I realized that other people were probably having the same struggle. And I became an affiliate for the software that I used to build a website. And then I went pretty meta, actually. I used the software to build a website to teach people about how to build a website. And in that process, I taught myself everything from loading the thing up to the internet to the copywriting, the adding bonuses, inserting email, capture, creating a little membership portal for people who got the bonus. And that went pretty well. And I was starting to climb with the income. And then I realized that,
1 second.
hey,
What was the software?
Excite Pro.
Excite Pro. Nobody listening even knows. There's probably
No,
one
no,
person.
it's like
That's
if you're
awesome. I
around.
didn't know that. I had a very similar start with Joomla. You
There you
know,
go. Like, well, that you're like the enemy. There was the Joomla people and there was the site build it people, right?
right? Yes.
WordPress wasn't really a thing back then, and
Yeah.
it'd be hard for people to understand this. And there was no Facebook groups or any of that stuff, right? So I got really good at it. I was probably the top 1 or 2 affiliates in the whole world at this point. But then I realized, oh, hang on a minute. There's already people who have the software who are struggling to go well with their online business. And interestingly, one of the huge cohorts of people who bought this software were church groups trying to build their own website. I thought you might find that interesting.
Yeah.
There was some MLMers, there was church website people, and then there was
Almost the
just
same
regular.
thing.
I guess they're fanatical, but the thing is, I took the information product that I was using as my bonus, and then I started selling that direct. And there was this one week in the Warrior Forum, I ran a Warrior special offer. It was $40, and it was the same week that I had a week off work to move house. And for that whole week, I was making $1,000 a day in sales, and I just thought, maybe I could just do this. If I could just do this instead of having to go to work, I reckon this would be more fun and more interesting. And so I set my target. I've got to match my income, and then I can jump out of full-time employment and I can do this online thing for reals. And I got to about half my income and got stuck. There were sort of milestones, stepping stones, but I got stuck. And then I got on a plane and went to America, and I attended Yannick Silver's Underground 4 event in Los Angeles. And I was a complete stranger. I didn't know a single person. And between that event And about 6 weeks later, I ended up in Las Vegas at a Maverick Mastermind that I'd won a ticket to through some competition at the first event. And then I met all the biggest gurus at the time. We're talking Brad Fallon, Mike Filsaime, Eben Pagan. We even had Tony Hawk, the skater, there, and Peter Diamandis. Like, it was just amazing. And then a few weeks after that, I quit my job because I took an idea from that. I went out to a couple of businesses, a motor dealer and an injury lawyer. And I said, I'm going to be doing online marketing full time. Would you like to be my clients? And they said, yes. They didn't even ask how much.
Well, it was just so rare, and like there
very
wasn't
rare. 2008. It was like, hey, I'll look after your website, your search engine traffic, I'll get it ranked. We'll run ads. I'll check your analytics. We'll set up email campaigns. Sorry about that. That's my reminder to talk to you. And they said yes. And then I quit my job, which I still, looking back, it's like one of the bravest, craziest things I've ever done, and never looked back. It's been a wild ride. So
we don't have to get into your revenue stats, but I have a little bit of a story I want to tell. Do you remember, I don't know if we were sitting in an airport or maybe we were sitting in a bar, and you kind of slid your computer over to me and you showed me like your bank account. Do you remember this moment?
Not really, no.
Okay. So James and we've become great friends over the years, but we've had a little bit of competition at times. And at this time, you were showing off a little bit, and you slid I guess you were checking your stats or something like that. And so he like turns his computer over to me, and he shows me like his bank account, and there was like $3 million in there or something like that. And I was just blown away. It might have been a shopping cart. I don't know what it was, but that's to say that James is a cheeky fellow, but he's done this. He's a bona fide expert. I have seen with my own eyes.
Oh, thank you. That's it sounds like a really smart ass thing to do. I apologize for my past self. Like, it's fair to say that I'm definitely not the guy I was 10 years ago, but I've learned along the way, especially it's good to have humility in this game. It's a long game, right?
It was a kick in the nuts, but it's been funny ever since.
It
drove me. So thank you for it, because it drove me. I was like, with one belief, and then also like, I'm gonna show him.
It's actually partly how I ended up online, because when I went to Las Vegas that time, I sat beside a super affiliate called Tim Houston, and at that time he was making $100,000 a month. And he just looked at me, like, he's in the seat next to me on the plane, and we're flying from San Francisco to Las Vegas. And he just looks at me and goes, why do you short sell yourself so much? Like, how come you accept so little? And at that time, like, I was earning $300,000 a year. Right. And he basically repegged me from I'm doing okay to I'm basically utterly ripping myself off. And it was a reframe. And then when we got to Las Vegas, there was a super affiliate there who was making about $100,000 a day. Oh. And it just completely reset my paradigm. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not subscribing to becoming a billionaire, and I'm not one of those money obsessed people. Mm. But at the time, it was what was needed to get me out of a job.
Yes, and it can be helpful, and if you don't want to keep it all, you're welcome to give it away.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's good. There's like, it's fine. You have different types of problems when you've got plenty of money, and I'd rather have those sorts of problems.
Well, I could shoot the breeze with you all day, but I know people want to hear about the royalties and the rev share agreements. And so let me just set this up a little bit. All day, we've been talking about, this is, you will be seeing this at the time of our workshop. All day at this point, we've been talking about building your own knowledge network, getting other experts to give you content. James is going to show you the flip side of that. He is an expert who provides content for people. And so he's going to show you kind of the royalty deals that he deals with, how he gets rev share, the different models of rev share. And so this is also another income stream for any of you that are watching, or it's an insight into how to approach other experts and what you may be able to offer them. And so, James, take it away, man.
Yeah, look, there's a sliding scale here, and I think you'll find a position that works well. Obviously, I like the revenue share model just to start out with, which in simple terms is just a percentage of revenue, right? And there's two main ways it can flow. There can be where you're the expert and you're helping someone else, and you get paid a percentage of their revenue, or you can reverse that, and you can own the asset, and then you can bring in experts and you can pay them a percentage of the revenue. Either way, they're earning a percentage of revenue, right? So it doesn't really matter which position you take, but the business model is pretty low risk because you're not getting messy with being a director or a shareholder, or it's not one of those sort of awkward 50-50s, which experts tend to find themselves in all the time, but they have real drawbacks because they either don't put in a 50-50 effort, or they can't reconcile that something's worth more than something else. And then they end up breaking it down into a wrong metric like time in. And of course, if we love leverage, we're not really focused on getting paid for our time. We want to get paid for our results. So if you're good at what you do, or you can find people who are good at what they do, these sorts of deals can work really well. You get paid for a long time. They're long-term deals. It's recurring. I get paid monthly from them, and you can have plenty of them. So you can build a portfolio. So you're not single source dependent on one job. So if you're an expert and people are trying to hire you, they'll just want to own you and treat you like an employee, right? But if you have a portfolio and you're on a non-exclusive situation, then now you can start building little pots of gold, and you can leverage your intellectual property and your ability to get results rather than just selling time. And you're breaking away from the retainer model. You're breaking away from the employee model. And that's where I like it. So in my case, as Justin's saying, I'm good at growing businesses and good at helping people because I've got a platform, I've got a distribution platform, and I've got good reputation. So if you have those assets, that lends itself well to getting paid to help people grow their business. And that's worked out great for me. The numbers are staggering. I've got basically 4 ways that I make money, and I've got a membership, and it has 2 levels. So there's a lower level, and there's hundreds of members. There's a higher level, and there's dozens of members. And then there's a couple of private coaching clients. I think Justin was one of them at one point, which was amazing. And I also have a bit of affiliate income, still done that from day one. But the partnerships, the revenue share deals that I do, I've got 7 now. And my 7 partnership deals bring in half my income. Right. And that's we're talking multi 6-figure income, getting close to 7 from 7 partners. So they can really get a massive amount of leverage compared to a regular retainer type deal. And that is because they're performance based, and the better you perform, the better you get paid. So I don't know which way you want to talk about how they work, but I mean, the mechanics are the same depending on which position you're taking. So there's going to be 2 main types of people here. People who are really good at something and want to get paid on performance to grow or to provide something. Or there'll be the people who don't have the expertise and want to hire or bring in experts and then pay them out based on their performance. So either way works. One way you're building an asset and you're not the expert, and the other way you're the expert and you're building an income stream. And just want to address one of the major questions that would come up is, if you're getting paid a royalty, wouldn't it be better to be a partner so that you could get a big payout if the business sells or whatever? I always build into my agreements a payout scenario. So this is the one small change I made from some of the source information that I drew upon from Jay Abraham. And I'll give him some credit here because he sent me over a stack of recordings from his private masterminds that he never published. And I went through them meticulously and looked for the mechanics of these deals. And the one thing that was missing was that he would get to a point where people start resenting making the payments. They feel there's diminishing return. And then at that point, he would approach them and say, why don't you just write me a check and I'll go away? And I put in a mechanism where if the deal's going to end, the expert can walk away. They can just say, listen, this doesn't work for me. I'll give you 30 days notice and I'm out. And that's fine. But if the person who owns the asset who you're helping grow wants to leave, they make a payout, which is usually a multiple of the royalty.
Okay. Love this. Let's dial it back a little bit for, like you're on your 7th deal. You're flipping through J. Abraham materials, how
No,
you know,
to be clear, I've had 15 deals to get to 7 keepers
okay.
after almost 8 years.
Okay.
So I can tell you about deals that don't work as well.
Right. What is the process? I know you're a process guy, so I don't want to use the word funnel, but what does the process look like of getting a deal, a client like this?
Yeah.
Getting
So
in front
in
of
my case, it would basically start with deciding which part of the market do you want to work in. So you set your coordinates, like any good researcher or copywriter or campaign. Where do you want to offer specialized attention? And the second part would be making sure you've got a system or IP or knowledge or a way to harness it that's quite effective. So you've got to be good at what you do. Assuming those two things, the third thing, in my case, it was building reputation. Reputation builds deal flow. We've seen other people come into this space, much newer than us, Justin.
Yeah.
They come in, they give away stuff, they build audience, they spend on media, and then they become the go-to source. And then what happens, as you know, people come knocking on the door. I've had a pull market, which means that people come to me. People will usually, I want to be Simon Cowell in those sort of celebrity shows. I want people to come and audition for me to see if I'll accept them. And this presents a couple of really interesting points. You will definitely get the wrong people coming to you wanting help. The people who feel like you're going to do everything for them, that you have some magical unicorn stardust power, that you can wave a magic wand and they'll be instantly wealthy. So you have to have really strong filters. I'd say that is the 80-20 of these deals, is saying no to the wrong deals, because otherwise you're going to be working for free or working for a low yield.
Yeah. Lately, my sales process has been, I try my best to scare them off of the call. And if they're still talking to me after I've tried to scare them off of the call, then I know, okay, we can probably work together, so maybe not that extreme, but like having some filters.
Well, one of the things that I've introduced, if I'm going to consider a partner, I will generally want to promote them as an affiliate first, because that does a lot of things. That means we've now gone from potentially being a parked car to at least we've got a car on the freeway, right? We're in motion. This thing actually works, and my audience likes what they have. And importantly, because one of them failed this test, do they pay me on time? I actually promoted someone as an affiliate. They have a good product. My audience liked the product. But when it came time for the affiliate payment to be made, he bought a motorbike. and then he paid a bit late. And then I'm like, oh, maybe he just had a brain fade or whatever. I promoted him again as another test to see, because often you can make one promotion and you bring your market out of your list, and then you make another promotion and it's a bit watered down because you found all the buyers. But again, my audience were really responsive and they liked the program. And this time he bought a car. I'm like, okay, well, there's no way we can be partners because he's
James is
spending
like, wait
my
a minute,
money.
I'm trying to buy a motorbike. I'm trying to buy a car.
Well, I've got a motorbike and I got plenty of cars, but and I love my Toyota, by the way. I know we're a fellow Toyota champion here.
Yes.
But I feel like that was a really good miss. I missed dodging that one. I didn't enter into something that could have been awkward for me. And as a former debt collector back in the 90s, I don't like waiting on my money. I'm really clear about that. And so you have to have trust in these deals, because trust is going to be the currency to make them long lasting. And I'm pleased to say that the deals that I've got now, there's a couple of elements that are really noticeable, but one is they value me. They really value me, and they feel lucky to be working together, and they wouldn't want to do anything to upset it. And you can tell in the way they communicate and the respect that's shown when we're organizing things and planning stuff. It's not just a transactional relationship. It goes deep. So for people who like deep, long-term relationships, these deals work particularly well.
Yeah. I wrote, a few minutes ago, I was writing something, notes based on what you said. You gave me this idea. You called your social media a distribution platform. And I know it's not just your social media, it's your website, your blogs, your podcast, your email. But I think that is a really profound idea. And I think it's a good starting point, that, you need to start seeing your social media as a distribution platform that you're building. I mean, you don't have to like Logan Paul, but he has a distribution platform now to where he's able to do multi-million-dollar, maybe even billion-dollar deals now. Mr. Beast launches a burger shop, and all of a sudden it's a worldwide chain. So start thinking of your social media as a distribution platform that you can then use as an affiliate for some deals to see if they even convert, to see if they pay on time, to see if your audience works well, and then you can follow up with more deals. So I like that.
And somewhere in there is bring them across your email list, please. For the love of God,
yes,
get them on your email list. That house list asset is it's just a money machine, and you can easily test something by sending a small segment. Send the whole lot if you want, but I prefer to test small and roll out big. But I've always talked about own the race course, right? It comes up a lot the whole time we've been online. And the idea is pretty simple. Control what you can. Of course, you're out on these platforms. You'll get shut down. You'll get slapped. You'll get throttled, all these different names, canceled even. At least if you have a multiple points of control, or you following all the instruction, right? If you give stuff away on a website, at least create a remarketing list from those URLs and give them a book or something so they can come onto that email list. And then you have the power, because that's really valuable to someone else. So that's why people pay for sponsorships. That's why people will pay influencers and all of those things. And if you're a Hollywood actor and you have a bigger following than the other actor, you'll get the part in this day and age, right? Because you have distribution, you've got eyeballs, you've got attention.
And I have figured out a really good argument for the social media versus email, which I know me and you can't even believe that is an argument these days. I remember trying to get people to use social media. Now I'm like, wait a minute, you don't have an email list? You're crazy. Yes, so the argument usually back to me is like, well, email has algorithms too. You have inboxing, you have send a reputation, you got deliverability, all of that stuff. But here's the difference, okay? At any given point, I can export my email list to a spreadsheet. And so when I get canceled or shut down or whatever, boop, I'm over to Aweber. I get shut down there. Boop, I'm over to ConvertKit. I get shut down there. I'm over to Maropost. You can't do that with your Facebook or your Twitter or your YouTube. And so that is like the number one. That is why me and James say to build your email list. It is an actual asset that you own and can sell. It's a database you can download and has portability.
And at some point, you used to be able to upload that list to create a target audience from it, right?
Yes. Okay, next question was marketability. How would one go about marketing themselves as hey, I'm a royalty guy? I don't think that would float well as a headline.
Most people don't understand the term, or they're not used to the concept. So it does require some framing or some explanation. Okay. The easiest way, like the way that Jay describes it, is, look, listen, if I could grow your business by $1, would you be happy to give me a dime? It's a simple, he comes at it from the no risk perspective, right? So in other words, I'll tell you where it's been interesting. Some of my original partners were prospects for my coaching, but the resistance didn't necessarily come from them. Sometimes it came from the spouse. Like, oh, you want to go and spend money on coaching again? Or what if you spend money on coaching, we don't get a result? And What I found is this helps people with their spouse. Funnily enough, they say, "Let's tell you what, he's going to help us grow the business, and if we don't grow at all, we pay nothing. We're not going to pay a cent. So all the risk's really on him. He's going to give it a shot, and if he can, then if he adds $1 million a year to our business, we'll keep 900,000 of it, and we'll pay him 100,000. And I think that's a pretty good deal."
Mm.
And they're usually like, "Well, I'm on board with that." And that's why these deals can work pretty well, because I actually let the other party win. It's their business. They get to have all the fame and accolades. I'm just quietly in the background taking a small royalty, like a hit songwriter, for helping them to know what to sing and then getting it out to the marketplace. So you have to be comfortable taking the less significant position in this deal if you want to be the expert. And I'm behind some of the people who have got bigger reputations and bigger names than I do, and I'm okay with that. People would never even know that I'm there. And I quite like that silent partner style of business.
I'm getting there with you, man. I'm ready to fade into the back, and I'm with you. So, okay, so you can call yourself a business consultant, call yourself a conversion rate optimizer, any of these different things, and it's the way you structure your deals.
I think so. Yeah, you would lead as the expert or the authority in the thing you're doing. And there are hybrid deals, and some of them, part of my learning process was to go out to people I know who had performance-based deals. And you'll especially find them in copywriting. You sometimes find them in service providers, like experts, agency type stuff. A lot of them have retainers plus performance bonus. That's a pretty interesting hybrid model. When you have those deals, it's a little more job-like, the retainer aspect, because the customer's taking risk and they're going to demand more from you. And also they usually end at some point when they no longer need the service. So I've gone straight performance only. And I usually go performance from where you're at now to where we're going to go. You can keep everything you had up until this point. From everything you've done till now, you've done all by yourself. Even if you paid me for coaching, you can start at this point. So in my portfolio, I've got a couple of ones that we started up from scratch. I think there's 2, and the rest of them were already in motion. And so that's, again, starting from scratch is a huge risk versus getting something in motion. But sometimes it warrants that. And the dictating factor for me was there's existing demand, and I just have to plug into it, and we make sales immediately. For one of them, we made $100,000 within a month. Nice. And the other one got up to a run rate of about $500,000 per year within the first 3 or 4 months. And it's been very consistent. So they can get up and running pretty quickly if there's existing demand and it just makes sense.
That's awesome. I'd love to throw a little tip in here. I'm nowhere near as experienced in this as you, but I have had many of clients over the years. And something that I have realized, a lot of times we get clients and the first thing we do is we want them to change everything. Oh, you got to change your website. You got to change your, and so what ends up happening is we come in and then all of a sudden we're like all this work and cost and change. And so now what I've been doing is when I come in, before I ask them to change anything, what's a quick win? Because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to, like I may be working with the husband, but I'm trying to win the wife in the sense of like, let me put some money in these people's pockets really quick so that they're like, oh, wow, I hired that guy and we made 50 grand, so like come in first 2 weeks, first month, try to like just get them a quick win, make them some money, and then you can go and clean up their whole spaghetti bowl mess of the things that they have going on. What do you think?
Well, you've actually touched on 2 critical points there, Justin. Okay. You have good intuition on this. One is one of the things that have caused some of the deals that didn't work out for me to fail was their lack of ability to implement. So I'm looking for team and capacity to scale. If they're not capable of growing, that's going to be a deal breaker. So I could have the greatest ideas. I could see an easy way for them to win, but then they don't implement it. It's very frustrating. So for me, I'm usually looking for a small team in place or a willingness to spend on the things that need to happen to get us to the next stage. So, of course, there's going to be some costs. But the second thing that you've really touched on, and it actually came up in a Perry Marshall podcast episode that I did, is when you look at your numbers or look at any business, usually by just deleting or taking away the worst performing aspect, it lifts the profitability instantly and it removes something for you to do. So I'm a big fan of the delete. I love deleting, purging. And I actually make this a point of differentiation with the work that I'm doing, because most of the people I'm mentoring are quite visionary, creative. They're quick starts. They like to do a lot of stuff. And my power move with them is to say, I don't want you to do more stuff. I'm going to tell you which stuff to stop doing. Mm-hmm. And I really lean on that 60-4-4, the 80-20 of the 80-20. I'll say, I'm going to help you identify which of the things you are doing that is really the important stuff. And then we're going to stop doing a lot of stuff. We're going to stop spending money on things that don't need spending on. We're going to remove some of the resource that you're wasting. We're going to narrow your focus on just a few things. And that's why since 2010, in our weekly calls, all I'm asking people to do is one thing for the entire week, just one thing. And often that thing is to stop doing something or turn something off, and automatically it lifts. And it's easy to demonstrate this in principle. But if you had 10 clients, 2 of them will be dream clients, most of them will be average, and then 2 of them will be a pain in the ass and suck up all your resource, all your energy, all your stress will be from these 2 clients. You just bump those 2 clients off, and suddenly it's like
life gets better.
Relief. Yeah, everyone in the team says, thank you, this is the best. And now you're so excited and you've got all that energy back, and just focus on the winning clients, and everything lifts. Your profitability lifts because you're no longer servicing clients that are literally losing you money. The longer you have them, the more they cost you.
Brilliant. All right, two questions, and then I'll let you get back to surfing. Contract process. We don't need to know like specifics, because I know your contract is your goal, but like help us with some tips. What are some things we should have in our contracts? Do we just go to one of these contract generator places and download a free one? Like, teach us a little bit about that.
The answer is no, you don't. There aren't great contracts for this. In my process, I took everyone else's contracts that I could find, and then I went through and I thought about what are the elements that are most important and what things aren't that important. And my goal with contracts, and having come from actual businesses, I knew that I wanted the contract to be as simple as possible, because if they're complicated, it's going to cost money. It's going to make it difficult to sell the deal. And it's also, sometimes they might be ineffective because they're just trying to trick themselves and they get to. So I wanted it as plain English as possible. I wanted it as short as possible. And I wanted to make sure I covered all the potential gotchas that could possibly come up. So I tried to anticipate things that could happen, like the deal ending or the customer copying my information for a clone business, or, them reselling the ideas to someone else. All the things that humans do because they're humans, right? Mm-hmm. And I put them in the first draft, and then I went to a solicitor or a lawyer, attorney, whatever you call them over there. And I said, this is what I'm trying to do. Help me out. And my lawyer put together the first version of the contract. And then I went out to market and I started doing deals. Over time, the other party, sometimes they would get their lawyer to check it and they'd query this or query that, or they'd want to make a change here or there. And so over time, out of I've done 15 of these deals. My clients, I'd say probably have done 60 or 70 of these deals, working off a similar template. And it's importantly, I got it written for Australian law because that's where my entity is. So it's more in common with UK law than US law. Secondly, most of the other parties' lawyers didn't really have a problem with it because it's so plain English and it all makes sense. But the main elements are, you want to know who the agreement's between. So think about which entity is it you as a person, or is it between your entity and their entity? You want to cover, what do you provide or do for that other party? I deliberately try and keep that very minimal. Like if you go putting we'll do a 2-hour call each week, I'll run a webinar for your members each week, you'll hang yourself because you miss one call or whatever, they'll null and void the contract. So I just provide intellectual property and assist where required type thing. You want it pretty general. Mm-hmm. You want to think about how you're going to get paid. So generally it's going to come down to a percentage, and it's going to be a payment frequency. I like monthly. And you also want to think about what happens if the deal ends. Can you walk away? Can they walk away? The most common mistake that I see is people go on a trial. They're like, oh, Justin, I'll help you grow your business. Let's just trial for a couple of months. And then at the end of that, we'll see if it works. And then we'll write an agreement up. After 2 months, you've seen all my tricks and you're like, I'm out of here. And you think you're going to be able to do it better yourself because you now don't value me as much as when you really needed me before I put an extra couple of $100,000 in your bottom line. So that's a really bad risk to take, not necessary. So I actually say in the agreement that after 12 months, you can buy out this agreement and it will just be a multiple of the royalty. I usually like 24 months of the average of the last 6 months royalty. So 24 times the average of the last 6 months royalty, and they can write a check and we can end it. And nice. That works well because it gives you a year to bring them up. If you're not getting anywhere close to getting them a result in 6 months or a year, it's time for you to walk away from the deal and you just give 30 days notice and release them. Right. Because it's not going to work. And some of the deals that didn't work were for crazy reasons you can't anticipate, right? Yeah. One of them got sunk in a search result by some, there's occasionally those crazy maniacs with way too much time who have a bee in their bonnet and they just want to take someone out because they feel quite special. One of these guys took out one of my clients, and it was a slightly medical related industry, like not fully doctoried, but kind of in that sort of gray zone. And he just had a strong opinion piece and he had a much stronger site and he tanked my client's site. And I told my client how to fix it, but he didn't do it. And so we just basically limped along. And then I said, man, if you don't want to do what I think we need to do to recover this, then this is the end of the road for us. But I'll tell you what I also learned. I'm way better to deal with clients who are in my distribution network capability. That one was outside I don't have any clients for that industry. There was a limit to how much I could boost that business. I mean, it's almost an unfair advantage now. If I bring in someone who's got software or a service that every one of my clients needs, it's so easy for me to just roll out the red carpet and they lift.
Yeah. So one of my arch nemesis has been in these deals has been the accountant. I have had a couple of accountants who've gotten jealous of the size of the check that I was getting. And then they start singing in the CEO's ear, we could hire a whole team of people for what we're sending this guy. We could hire a whole room full of people for what we're paying this guy. And so be nice to the accountant, send them gifts, win them as a friend, because we need them to not pay attention so much when they're writing that check.
You're giving me tingles. When I was running the car dealership, it was basically me and the financial controller, because we had I was strong in sales and marketing, and I really got to learn that. I actually studied accounting. Not many people would know that, and I don't want to admit it, but I did study as associate diploma of accounting, and so I was good with the spreadsheets, and I could talk CFO language. These were chartered accountants, like full on super bean counters, right? Yeah. But my guy fancied himself as a bit of a sales and marketing guy. But I literally earned more than twice as much as him in the deals. And it was always a chip on his shoulder. Right. And you're right. The number one thing that I encounter when I'm helping a visionary sort out their messy business is I say, you need to hire a CFO. You need to get someone in here, and you need to get all your accounts coded. You need all your books in order. You need to get an understanding of where all this money is coming and going, right? Because you have no idea. And you're right. The first thing the CFO says, what's this payment? And it's,
Right.
payments to me. And so one of them, like, that happened a few times. They come back and say, oh, the CFO said I shouldn't be paying you this amount. And I said, you tell the CFO they only got hired because I suggested they come in the first place. But
Ooh.
so at least we get a little bit of a win back in that regard.
Love
But
it.
also, the last time I did this, the CFO said, "Hey, you've been not accounting for GST properly," to one of my partners, and I had to back pay
Mm,
almost 2 years worth of GST, which is effectively 10% on the payments that I got, which I paid them immediately,
mm,
but they didn't have the visibility on it because they weren't looking at their numbers properly. I think numbers are critical. If you're
yes.
going to go into these deals, that one of the things you do put in the contract is a right to audit
Mm,
and to be able to get access to either the cart or their accounting books so that you can reconcile and make sure the numbers are correct. And
that's a
I
good point.
actually put a small penalty in place if the numbers aren't quite right. I've never had to use that, and I don't know if I would, but it at least helps people know that it's important. And you
Yeah.
put a date that you need to be paid by. I like to be paid by the 10th of the following month. So usually the process happens, and we just went through an end of month recently. My partners start sending over their numbers, and then we start sending the invoices. So we send off 7 invoices. The money hits our account like clockwork. And I will say that I have been paid by every single partner the whole time I've been doing this for 7 years, because that will be the number one question. What if I don't get paid?
Right.
Well, it's not worth them not to pay, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And you stop, working with those people, you stop
Exactly. Well, even worse, I could
stop
probably
feeding them.
go into the similar market with someone else with all my knowledge or whatever. But I wouldn't want to do that. I'd
Yeah.
rather just have the partners I've got. They're, some of them become such good friends. Like, we stay at each other's house, we go surfing trips together. We speak every week. I like the business relationships that turn into friendships, a lot like you and I, right? We met each other online, and over so many years, like literally, what is it, a decade and a half,
Yeah.
we've become friends.
Mm,
And when you get to those levels of trust and you really know what people are good at, that's when it becomes powerful. But I just want to stress this: each of my revenue share deals is worth between 5 to 10 times a high level private coaching student. So the multiples are just so significant, they can't be ignored.
okay. Awesome. I want to wrap this up here. Give us a quick picture. What does fulfillment look like? Like a quick
It's
version of
exactly
a
the
day
same
in the
as my
life.
regular coaching, except
Okay.
for distribution. I plug them into my podcast. I'll send out emails for them, or I'll boost their social posts. That's what I'll do above the level of where I'm just coaching somebody or being their mentor. I will make sure they're getting attention, and I'll also connect them. Like when I go and visit someone somewhere else, I'll go visit you in New Orleans or wherever we happen to be. Um, I'm representing them. They're my partners. I'm thinking, how can my partner fit into this opportunity? Where can this be? How can this grow my portfolio?
Mm,
So it basically looks like I speak to, of the 7 people, I speak to 5 of them once every 2 weeks, one of them once a week, because it's my biggest number one partner. And the other one just turns up to my weekly group mentor calls and likes to speak to my other prospects, who all inevitably become clients. It's probably a good idea. And then I just plug them into my podcast. So it's a pretty leveraged outcome. I'll tell you what it means for me. In simple terms, I have a 7-figure income and I work 10 hours a week. And I've been able to sustain that for the last year or two. Prior to that, it was about 15 to 25 hours a week for probably the 5 years before that. But over time, my revenue started at 0 7 years ago. And then over the last 7 years, they've ended up being about half my income. And where it's going is, if we fast forward in 5 to 7 years from now, it might be that's the only thing I have. I might just have my entire living might be I just help 5 or 6 people as their silent partner, and that's all my income. And it would literally take 5 hours a week to do that.
sounds amazing, James. Your time is so valuable. Thank you so much for these tips and things that are earned in battles and wars and only over time.
I've
So
got the scars, man. I've got the scars if you look
amen, brother.
closely.
Amen. So thank you so much, James. Where can they come to buy more from you? Because they should.
Look, jamesschramko.com,
Okay.
and there's a products page up. There is a revenue share training there. That's a good starter. It's free. It's not even an opt-in, right? Just start with that. The thing I'm thinking is, Justin, we should speak way more often.
Absolutely. I would love to speak. We don't have to be recording either, man. I would just love to
Yeah.
talk to you more about all things. So, James, thank you so much, guys. I have known James longer than my daughter. Okay. So like, and I know him. I've been to his house. I've surfed with him. Highly recommend anything that he has for sale. Carte blanche. So go to jamesschramko.com, find something. You're going to like it. You're going to get value from it. All right, guys. I'm Justin Brooke from happyunemployed.com, and this is the end. Thank you for being here. Okay. I'm out, James. See ya.
Thanks, mates. Thanks
Yeah.
so much.
Bye.